Good evening and welcome to the WDSU News Hot Seat. I'm Travis Mackle. Tomorrow in Baton Rouge at the state capitol, a special session. Lawmakers have been called back in to try and address the insurance crisis that this state is dealing with. We are joined by two very familiar faces here, two state senators. We have State Senator Gary Carter from Algiers. Also, your district includes Jefferson Parish and parts of Plaquemines Parish. And we have State Senator Cameron Henry from Jefferson Parish, whose district also includes parts of Orleans Parish. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. How are you?
All right, let's just get right to it. Since Hurricane Ida, more than a half dozen insurers have now pulled out of this state. The insurance commissioner and governor have called this a crisis because people, one, can't get paid for damages, and two, can't get anybody to write insurance for them. We'll start with you first, Senator Henry. What do you hope to get out of this session? Is the call broad enough to really help people?
Yeah, what we're trying to do is, Travers, is put about $45 million into a fund we created last session to attract insurance companies here. And ideally, they're going to pull some of their new policyholders out of Citizens, which instantly gives those folks a reduction in their insurance. The call is set up perfectly for that. Just that one bill, $45 million. We'll have a test period between now and when session starts. And, this is not the only fix we're going to address. Obviously, during session, we're going to do some other things as well. But for right now, the most immediate thing we can do is try to get more insurers back into our market.
Senator Carter, I'm sure you're hearing the same thing from your constituents. A lot of people are just trying to find insurance right now. Does the governor's call seem appropriate? Should it be less or more, in your opinion?
No, I agree with Senator Henry. I think the governor's call is just on point. It allows us to come in for a special session with a narrowed purpose of standing up the writing of insurance currently in the state of Louisiana to make sure that the markets are allowed to continue. And I also agree that I think it's just the beginning part of the conversation. I think we have to act very quickly to make sure that people are still able to get insurance in the state of Louisiana. But we have to look at what's a longer term fix to this? How can we better structure this where we don't have to keep revisiting this? As you may recall, this was an issue after Hurricane Katrina, and now we're facing it once again.
Let's talk about Citizens. We'll go in reverse order. We'll start with you, Senator Carter. About a year and a half ago, Citizens, which is an insurer, a state-funded insurer of last resort, had about 30,000 people. They're now well over 100,000. Is there a concern that if we deal with another natural disaster, Louisiana Citizens will have the funding to pay people to make them whole?
Well, that is a main issue. And one of the other issues, and it really affects the people we represent, the cost of that Louisiana Citizens policy, those policies are going up 63% on the residential side. So not only is there the burden, the financial burden on Louisiana citizens, but there's the cost onto our homeowners. If it's going up 63% for a residential policy, 70% in some instances for commercial policies. And those 100,000 policies that you mentioned that citizens have, most of those policies are south of I-10, right here in Orleans, Jefferson, Plaquemines, and also our friends out west in the Lake Charles, Cameron area.
Senator Henry, same thing. Are you confident citizens can make people whole? They've never had to go through a disaster. Hopefully we won't. Hopefully we are done with storms for a very long time, rather that be tornadoes that just touched down in December or hurricanes that we seem to deal with every summer. But are you confident that citizens can make people whole if we deal with a natural disaster, given the fact that it probably wasn't set up to have 100,000 people plus on it?
Well, I mean, we would have to help our citizens, the policyholders out, right? We couldn't leave them abandoned. It's not designed that way. But that's the whole reason we're having a special session, is to pull some of those people off, because we can look at the numbers and go 100,000 people that are hit. You know where they live. Senator Carter's right. He knows where they live. That's going to be in flood-prone areas, hurricane-prone areas. If we get another major storm, the citizens policyholders have an issue. So do non-citizen policyholders as well, because the non-citizen your State Farm, Allstate, those policyholders pay a little bit each year. Our policies pay for those citizens insurance. So we're all on the hook for that, which is why there's such broad support for this special session and the need to begin this process.
Let's just stick with you on this question, Senator Henry. does Jim Donelon, the insurance commissioner, have to be very careful here? Obviously, he's up for re-election, but that's not the point of this conversation. But does he have to be careful because he wants more companies to come right in Louisiana? But do you have to get good companies, not just fly-by-night companies? Because I think we've all seen recently that a lot of these fly-by-night companies came in here, they insured people, and then they had to go out of business because they didn't have the financial means to make people whole. Is it really a double-edged sword for him? He needs more writers, but he has to be careful of who he brings in.
We need high quality writers. And I think the commissioner, from my conversations and also his public testimony, he's going to learn from the mistakes that were made during Katrina, where you had exactly some of these insurers who really didn't have the best ratings coming in and writing insurance policies. So he's working on that diligently. There's also a balance you have to make. If you can't over regulate the insurance industry because they don't have to be here, right? Their job, it's an industry. Their job is to obviously make money. So he's got to be careful that he opens the door wide enough for them to come in, but also not too wide where they take advantage of the process that we're putting forth and really put a burden on our constituents. So we're going to help make sure those mistakes aren't made the same that were made after Katrina.
Same thing, same question, Senator Carter. Is it really something that the commissioner has to be careful with? Just like Senator Henry said, I mean, look, the insurance business, they want to help their policyholders, but they're a for-profit industry, and a lot of people are frustrated right now, especially with a lot of these companies that were allowed to come in and write and then essentially took people's money month after month but couldn't make them whole after big natural disasters.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And not only that, but we're talking about $45 million of our taxpayers' money, our state general fund money to make available for insurance companies. I think that should be enhanced scrutiny whenever there's tax incentives involved to make sure that these monies are spent as we intend them to be spent and in a way that's highly accountable.
So let me ask both of you all to weigh in on this. A GOP House member, I know you all are in the Senate, and the House is a totally different body. You all are both there at one time in the not too distant past. Brian Fontenot from Lafourche Parish, his parish has been hit hard. He's on record saying, look, maybe we should look at money to help the companies that have been good soldiers in this, like State Farm, like Allstate, to try to give them money to really boost what they're doing here. Is that on the table for something like this, to try to give more money to the companies that have stood firm in Louisiana for decades? You can both weigh in on that question. We'll start with you, Senator Carter.
You know, there are lots of many good ideas out there. I think that's one that certainly merits consideration and study. Right now, we're in a position where we kind of have to act sooner rather than later. We have to act in an emergency sort of fashion, but those are good reasons. Those are good ideas. There are other ones, such as how can we give money to homeowners to help them fortify their houses to make it where they don't have as much exposure to hurricanes. So I think we're all willing to consider many different good ideas, regardless of who they come from.
Same thing, Senator Henry. How do you feel about some of these ideas to maybe get money to the companies that have been here for decades, that are doing the right thing, not the fly-by-night companies that have essentially pulled out?
Well, I don't see a reason why we wouldn't consider that. I mean, they've got to come and kind of do the same spiel that the new company is going to come in and do, and tell us how many policyholders they can take out of Citizens, why they aren't taking them now, what this incentive will do to existing companies. But we'd obviously like to grow our homegrown companies first before we bring outside companies in. But look, there's as Senator Carr and I both agreed, we're open for any and all ideas that someone can come up with to lower homeowners insurance. So if giving incentives to the existing ones here work, man, I'm all for it.
Final question to both of you all. I always tell people this. I feel like as goes Metro New Orleans, as goes the rest of the state. And look, that may be a biased comment towards New Orleans, but I think some people would say there's a lot of fact based in that. You all represent Orleans and Jefferson Parish, the two biggest, most high-profile parishes in arguably the state of Louisiana. We'll start this with you, Senator Henry. If it becomes a big enough issue, and look, I know Florida and California and even the Carolinas and New York are dealing with insurance crises themselves, but does it hurt attracting business and homeowners to Jefferson and Orleans if people want to come here and then they have sticker shock when it comes to, wow, I have to pay what for insurance for my home or my business? Is that a deterrent, Senator Henry, for businesses and homeowners for Jefferson and Orleans?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not only people that we're trying to attract to move here and do business, it's also keeping people here, right? Keeping our existing constituents here. That's a huge number. When you come in and your homeowner's insurance doubles or triples from where you used to live, your car insurance does the same thing, or what a lot of my constituents are getting now, their renew policies are going up 50, 75%. It puts a lot of pressure on them financially to figure out whether Louisiana is a place for them. So that's why the special session is so important, just to let our constituents know that we understand their pain, because we feel it too. We're homeowners as well. And we're moving in a direction that hopefully can give them some relief.
Yeah, Senator Carter, we can focus in with you. You've tried to recruit businesses to the DeGaulle area of the West Bank, parts of Plaquemines, which are in your district, parts of West Bank, Jefferson. Are you hearing it from business owners and homeowners that may have a hang up saying, wait, I don't know if I can pay that much to insure my business or my property?
Absolutely. I'm hearing from them, and I'm also hearing from those people who live in those districts, just concerned about the cost, the increase of insurance, the cost of doing business in the state of Louisiana, the cost of doing business right here in the greater New Orleans area. We have an affordable housing crisis in the state of Louisiana, across the nation. And you think about now the cost of insuring affordable housing, if they have to go through Citizens, is now 70%. The cost of a business coming, just a regular business coming to the state of Louisiana, wanting to own their property, the cost of their insurance skyrocketing, that affects our entire economy, our housing market, our housing stock. All of that is put at risk. And that's why I think you see us in a bipartisan way coming together, Republicans and Democrats. How can we do something that's best for our entire economy? That's not just good for here, the greater New Orleans area, but we'll also have our friends been devastated in Lafourche area, the Lake Charles area, and all across the state of Louisiana, in the southern part of our coast.
All right. It should be an interesting week. Senator Gary Carter from Algiers, Senator Cameron Henry from Jefferson Parish. It's been a busy week from you all. I know you were in D.C. At the D.C. Mardi Gras. Obviously, it's a work event for a lot of elected officials. Now you're in Baton Rouge for the special session. Hopefully, you'll get back to Jefferson Parish in New Orleans here before Carnival season. So we appreciate your time. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for the hot seat. I'm Travers Mackel. The special session starts Monday, January 30th. You can see this entire segment starting Monday morning on our website, WDSU.com.